Welcome to another episode of Trust the Process with Martin Bugai. Today we have a great guest whose journey embodies the essence of personal growth and physical transformation. Meet Jim, a business coach who transitioned from corporate America to entrepreneurship, driven by passion to help executives rediscover their purpose and align with their core values to excel as leaders. Jim's decision to join our coaching program stemmed from a deep desire to unlock his full potential, overcome mental barriers, and achieve his fitness goals to better serve his clients and himself. Despite being active in activities like CrossFit and weightlifting, Jim faced challenges with persistent aches, energy fluctuations, and limited recovery, impacting his overall health, well-being, and performance. After 8 months of dedicated effort, Jim underwent a remarkable transformation, shedding over 26 pounds of body fat and completely transforming his physique. Not only was he able to get rid of the aches and pains, but also regain his energy levels, boosting his confidence and enhancing his quality of life. Join us to hear Jim's inspiring story of self-discovery and resilience. Hello, Jim.
Hello.
Very nice to meet you and welcome to London.
Thanks.
We were just talking about this. It's a very bizarre scenario because we've just met for the first time in real life. So you've been on the program for 8-9 months.
Yep.
So since last April 23. And here you are in London. We just met and we're doing a podcast. How bizarre.
Yeah, how bizarre. That's good.
Awesome. Look, as I kind of always do in these interviews, I want to take everybody back and to the start of this journey. So if we take it all the way back to April last year when you joined the program, or actually even before, because we started talking in February 2023.
End of February, yeah.
Yeah. It took you a little bit of time to actually commit and join the program since our very first conversation. Tell me more about that.
Yeah. I think originally you reached out on LinkedIn or something.
Yeah.
I don't remember exactly how, but struck up a conversation, did a little bit of internet stalking, trying to figure out who you were. Mm-hmm. Between February and March, I had interest. I had some of the desire to try and get in better shape. I think mentally I just wasn't quite over the hump yet of saying I want to make that investment, mm-hmm. Both physically and in financial resources, but also physically in terms of the expenditure it was going to be to get in good shape. We went on vacation. My wife and I went away in March to Costa Rica, and we came back from that. And candidly, just looking back at the pictures, and I had a great time, but looking back at the pictures and also where I was at mentally in my life, I'm like, I think this is the time. And then it wasn't maybe but a week or two later, you reached out and said, hey, what's the holdup, or why not take action now? Something like that. And it was just enough to say it's time to do it. So I think that was probably the 1st of March, and middle of March, somewhere around in there. And then we started 1st of April. So I guess the reason the difference between February and April getting started was just the mental mind game of saying, yeah, I'm actually in it to win it now. I want mm-hmm. to do it. So.
Mm-hmm. And so this is very interesting because something you said, you look back at the photos and you weren't necessarily very happy with the way you looked. Was that the catalyst for you to say, yes, I'm in and this is the right time and I want to make the change? Or what was it? What was the why?
Yeah. What was the why? The photos really, this wasn't about vanity. This wasn't about just physically looking better. Of course it was, but it was also like the emotional and mental and everything else inside. And I have to probably tell the whole story. Back in 2020, I stepped away from my corporate world and went into business for myself. And that journey itself is a pretty, tumultuous time of you just soul searching and trying to figure out what you really want in life and how you go make it happen, and every day waking up and trying to find your clients, right? For me, that process has been good from a growth and development and whole perspective. There were just pieces of me in there, though, that were like, I just needed a lot more belief in myself. I needed a lot more confidence in myself. And I remember looking back at those pictures in Costa Rica and thinking, if everybody else is looking at this, they're like, wow, this guy's traveling around the world. He's visiting places. He must be really successful in his life and his work. And I thought, things have gone really well for me in life and work, and I'm really blessed because of that. But there was still a piece of me that said, I just want to have more inner confidence in myself, take up more space a little bit more, be more fulfilled, I guess is the best way to put it. Physically, I wasn't in the greatest of health, but with clothes on and a shirt on, I still was tall and rather thin, and most people would say you look fit. I knew, though, when I got out of the shower or took off my shirt that I just didn't, I was aging and I just didn't look like what I wanted to look like. So there was a component of the physical aspect, but for me, it was much more around the mental discipline of saying I can push myself to do something I haven't done before. And the hope was that would also give me greater confidence in work and in business. So.
Mm-hmm. That's great. That's really quite an interesting perspective, because, like you said, it was the confidence, starting a new business, going out on your own, and kind of, as a, I suppose, self-employed person, a business owner, you kind of want to inspire in that. So tell everybody, what is it that you do? You're a coach yourself, right? Business coach?
I work with midlife executives. I'm an executive coach, leadership. I've worked in leadership for 25 years. And so what I help midlife leaders, mostly executives or founders of their own businesses, do is to help them kind of pivot their brain and lead in a more effective way in the second half of their life. Mm-hmm. Generally what happens is we get stuck into a rut. What we've done in our first half, we relied on our muscle or our brawn. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times our intellect. And when we get into the later parts of life, it's about using that wisdom and actually leading a lot more effectively. So that's been my journey. Mm-hmm. And I also just can reflect that then with my clients. And a lot of times what I would hear myself and working with my clients there was a lot of physical being stuck in their life. They mm-hmm. had put a lot of things on the altar of sacrifice in terms of their relationships with their friends or their relationships with their family and even their physical health for the sake of their business success or for the sake of their career success. And I would find myself, when we're in those conversations, they were stuck with that, and they always had these desires, but they just didn't feel like they had the available time. And I think there was one particular conversation that I sat back on, and maybe as you find out too, like when you're working with your clients, a lot of times there's some inner reflection that goes on. And I was sitting there thinking with them, well, if this is good for you, it should also be good for me. And I was working out, I was doing a lot of cardio, I was running, but I wasn't eating right, and I wasn't lifting, and I wasn't really there was no goal at mm-hmm. the end of it. It was just, maybe I'll ache a little bit less. Mm-hmm. And so that conversation with my client also kind of kickstarted this, where I said, I think it's got to be a little bit more about more than just not aching. I think it has to be a little bit more about what's the goal?
Yeah.
Where do I want to go with this? So reflecting my journey and my client's journey and them likewise into my life, I think it's been important, because a lot more clients now, granted, I'm not on camera without my shirt on a lot of times with them, but a lot of times they can tell, that they'll ask me, are you losing weight? You look different. You feel like you have more energy, like what's happening in your life, right? And then I can then relay, yeah, I was always active. I just wasn't eating right and putting the whole program together.
Yeah. Because as far as I remember, in that conversation that we had, like you said, you were doing CrossFit, you were quite active. You're active in your daily sort of life as well, but you just weren't getting the results that you were after. But what I remember is there was no clarity and there was no structure. You were doing these things, but you weren't really getting anywhere, right?
Right. When I turned 40, I joined CrossFit, mm-hmm. and I thought that, I can push myself to do something. I had gone through kind of a career challenge at that point, trying to figure out who I was again. I took a couple months off to reconnect with the family, and mm-hmm. when I did that, I joined CrossFit. Mm-hmm. And I realized I could do all kinds of crazy stuff. Mm-hmm. When I was in the box and competing, I did some competitions, but I was at an age level where I got to be in the masters division, and I wasn't competing with the 20 and 30-year-olds mm-hmm. anymore, right? It proved to myself that I could do hard stuff. And it was good, but it was a physical toll on my body, right? So between 40 and 45, I did that pretty intensely. When I turned 45, I dropped back on CrossFit a little bit. I just wasn't finding it as motivating and as exciting anymore. I didn't really compete in competition. So again, there wasn't a goal at the end. And then between 45 and 50, I had just kind of dabbled. I'd gone back and forth to the gym, did a few workouts on my own. I mostly just ran outside for reflection and exercise and cardio, but I wasn't doing a lot of anything that would build muscle or physically challenge me. It was mostly just for decompression. So then turning 50, I was in the whole trip and everything else that had on, and I was like, I need to do something. And I tried to go back to CrossFit, but I found myself in the gym with a bunch of 20 and 30-year-olds, and it just didn't feel right. And I didn't like being on that schedule. I didn't like being on, having to be there at 5:30 at night to get into class. And I remember one of the things you said is, would it be much better just to like get in and get out and get your work done and then get about your day? And I'm like, yeah, it actually would be.
Yeah.
So...
yeah, it was the efficiency of it, right? Because, again, running your own business, you kind of want to be on your own schedule. Okay, great. So it seems like you really needed that clarity. What is it that I want to achieve, and that structure? And that really catapulted. I mean, you're in the best shape. I mean, hopefully you will tell me that you're in the best shape.
You just met me, Martin, so you don't know the best shape of my life.
I've seen photos and videos and everything. So, but do you feel like you're in the best shape, at least, in your later... like you're 50?
51.
51. Would you say you are in the best shape of your life?
Absolutely.
At 51?
Yeah,
that's amazing.
Yeah, physically and mentally, and I think just as a whole person, as a whole man, I just feel like this has kind of helped me put all the pieces together. I mean, I've been a big proponent most of my life, and all of my clients, I tell them too, like one discipline begets another discipline begets another discipline, and busy people get a lot of stuff done because they can figure out how to put it all together, right? If there's one piece of me that wasn't feeling good about myself, it felt like that was the piece that was dragging the battery down a little bit. And here in this now, I feel better. I have more energy. I look better. I get up. I have more structure to my day, knowing I have to get all this stuff worked in. I eat better, which has been a big success for me, but not just for me, but for my whole family. Them watching this journey, they've started to eat better too. We realized there's a lot of stuff we were putting in our bodies we just didn't really need. So I'd say it's been a win-win all the way around.
That's fantastic. What I really want to get to for a second is, obviously you being business coach yourself, you work with execs, etc., like you mentioned. Have you found being on this program, it being a beneficial thing, and has it translated into the business side of things in terms of, I don't know, being more successful for whatever reason? Did it help?
So did I attract more clients as a result of it? I can't say that I have a direct story there, but in terms of my ambition, yes, right? Well, I'm proving to myself that there are things that you can do that are hard, and there are things that you can do that are hard and scary. And then if you push through the fear, sometimes on the other side of it is a lot of reward, right? And so, I mean, just stepping into the gym, not knowing exactly what to do the first couple times, right? And not knowing how to work it out, but having you and Jason behind the scenes there, looking at videos, doing coaching calls, stepping into it, the accountability process just was enough push to keep going through the scary until it started to actually see results, right? So in terms of business, the same things have happened, right? Like my mind has started to expand about how can I expand my work? And that might be stepping into places, shooting podcasts or doing other things that seem a little scary. There's a lot of mind game behind it for me. Or there might be writing a book, or going into writing a lot more, or putting curriculum out there that people could get on their own rather than having to be in the face-to-face coaching call. So things like that, my mind started to grow about how could this thing grow even bigger. And I honestly think that those were the demons that I was trying to defeat when I was looking in those pictures back from Costa Rica. Those were the things that I was saying, I want to do this, but it's scary, and maybe I'm not ready for it. Maybe I'm not there. But I think I've proved to myself a little bit through this journey that stepping through the fear, stepping into the anxiety, and stepping into the goal that you really want it's helpful.
Amazing. I love that. I really do. So what would you say you found the most challenging on the program since starting this journey? Or anything at all?
Yeah, I don't know that I would say, I mean, getting the work done and figuring out how to put it in the calendar might be the most challenging. Probably along with, right beside that, is the fact that there are some things that are going to have to come off of the calendar, or some maybe things that were never on the calendar that are going to fall by the wayside, right? I mean, there's just less time to watch TV, or there's less time to do the mindless stuff that I didn't need in my life anyway. So it just helped me kind of ruthlessly prioritize really what I want. But the program itself wasn't hard. And that actually was the big attracting to me, is because I didn't want to have to program my nutrition, and I didn't want to have to program my workouts. I don't want to have to think about what I'm going to do when I get to the gym. And candidly, you guys know too, sometimes I would just open my app up when I'm at the gym and go, what happened? You just changed things, right? And so I'm trying to figure it out while I'm there rather than preparing for it in advance. So I'm kind of a just in the moment type of person. And so for me, that was a big part of the attractiveness, is the app was there, you were there, the program is structured. I wasn't following like specific food choices, and there wasn't meal plans that I was having to prepare for. It was just eat this much and within these boundaries and track it. For me, that was the simplicity of it, was actually the beauty of it. So I can't say that there was anything that was too difficult.
That's great. I mean, because we didn't really speak about that, and this is the question I'm asking you for the first time. So it's really good to know that it wasn't overly challenging or anything like that. But I would say with what you just mentioned, that must be a big positive, knowing that, okay, you've realized that there were times that you would watch telly or be mindlessly doing something that wasn't actually getting you closer to any sort of goals. We all, I think, guilty of that nowadays. So that's really interesting to find out. Brilliant. What would you say was the highlight of the journey?
You know, I think what I would say is the highlight is my wife is kind of the hero in this journey. She's watched this from the sidelines for a while. And selfishly, I mean, I don't know, maybe most guys feel this way, but I mean, I just wanted to look better, right? And she's the one that's going to notice the first and the fastest. And it was probably 3-4 weeks into the journey, just tracking food and eating differently. Workouts hadn't really gotten that hard yet, and there wasn't a lot of, there couldn't have been that many results from the gym part of it, but the diet part of it, immediately, there were some really stark results. I mean, you know, inflammation in the body went down, and that was a big win. There was a lot of stuff that just, you know, I started to look better, and she's like, wow, you're really not doing much except changing the way you're eating, right? And she does most of the shopping and most of the filling of the, you know, food role in our family. And I just had her add a few things to the shopping list, and occasionally I'd go to the store and get some stuff. And I started to not make my own meals, but I would supplement some of the stuff that our family was eating with just my own food. And she started to see that, and then she started to follow along. She started tracking her food. She started just monitoring what was going in her body and what calories that was and how much fat that was. And she realized, wow, I'm probably not balancing things appropriately either, right? So without having a real you or Jason behind her, she herself started transforming her body. And then she went to the gym, and then she started having the trainer at the gym put workout plans for her. And so she's really come around a lot in this journey. So to me, I think that was the big win. I feel better. I look better. I'm the one here doing this, right? But knowing that it had impact beyond me, and it's probably having impact longer term. I mean, I don't think this is just when we're done, we're done. I think this is the way we live.
Yeah,
so
absolutely. I love that. It's such a sort of repetitive theme with our clients, that they start the journey, and then most likely, obviously, the impact that they have through this journey on the family and friends, etc., is, you know, it's kind of the ripple effect, which is amazing, because that's kind of what we really want. We don't want you to be sitting, you know, in your house eating dinner separately or anything like that. It needs to be inclusive. And the fact that your wife, like you said, is a hero, and the fact that she's stuck with you and be supportive, that's really a big part. The support at home, it's such a massive thing. So that's phenomenal to hear.
I mean, I'd say back when I started CrossFitting at 40, our family was obviously 10 years younger then, and the kids were a lot more needy, and there were a lot more things, right? And I would feel guilty about going to the gym. But I knew that if I kept myself in better shape, I could be better for them.
100%.
And so there was this tension, and there were times I know that she was taking an extra role in all of that, and not really complaining or, but there was maybe some jealousy between me and my time at the gym. During this journey, there wasn't. The kids are older. Our life is, you know, they're a little bit more self-sustainable. two of them have launched to college. And so what that means is we're more needed emotionally more now than we're needed in a physical sense.
Yeah.
Not diapering and all that stuff going on. But the emotional toll means the wholeheartedness of us has to be more present. And it comes back to that, like, if I didn't feel good, if there was that one piece of me that was still draining, I wasn't there more present for her or for my kids. Now I think because both of us are feeling better and actually have more energy in life than we used to, the emotional presence that we can have with our family is a whole lot better too. So
that's fantastic. Love that. I really do. So yeah, again, it seems like your wife has been a big sort of part of this.
I mean, to me, that was when she started seeing that it was working, and then she was there to keep encouraging, and then she came along in the journey sort of beside me in that. I mean, there are times we'll go to the gym together, or we see each other working out at the gym. Sometimes there's a text message or two, like when I'm really pumped, and she'll send me a message back. It's like, that's nice. A good feeling. So
that's brilliant, because you've got us cheering in your corner, and then you've got your wife cheering as well. So that's awesome. Brilliant. So you have how many kids?
5.
5 kids. Yeah. So you clearly are a busy man, just for everybody out there, because now, everybody's busy nowadays. Some people feel that they're more busy than others, but you clearly are a busy man, running your business, obviously family, etc., etc. Going back to that sort of scheduling part and prioritizing certain things, was that a big change for you, or did it come fairly naturally and you kind of...
it came pretty naturally. That's not a big change to know how to, organize my day. I was busy in college. I was busy, I've been busy a lot. And the way you get a lot of stuff done is just to know how to fit it in, right? But as I mentioned, there were habits that had creeped into my life that were just taking what I would call non-productive time. And it was a way to kind of zone out, right? I used it as a way to decompress, or an excuse to say, I just, and candidly, I think midlife journey, there's a lot of mental games that go on, because my physical stamina was starting to drop, and my, there were times when I would ache when I wake up in the morning or things like that. And I would just find myself saying, well, that's just what happens when you age, right? And I think what I learned in this journey is that, aging is inevitable, but the journey of growth can continue to happen throughout that, right? And for me, proving to myself that I can grow even while I'm aging, both physically, in terms of muscle volume or heart-lung capacity or any of those types of things, was as important for me as it was to say, like, okay, getting older doesn't mean you have to just succumb to the fact that you're going to look worse or feel worse in that journey. So
awesome. I do have a question, because again, that's really important for me. So how did you come to the conclusion that there were moments that you were just not really productive, and you could switch those into making it more productive, be it either for your business, yourself, your family, and how did you identify those things? Because you seem like somebody who does reflect a lot on things, is very much in here, thinks a lot, and kind of dissects things. So do you remember that whole process when you signed to the program, and did you actually sit down and go, okay, these are the times that I need to replace with X, Y, and Z, or did it sort of come more naturally?
Yeah, I think you're giving me more, it feels like you're giving me more credit than really what I deserve. But I am a naturally reflective person, and I have been most of my life. Particularly when I got to that point at about 40 years old, and I was climbing the ladder and doing all the things you needed to do to grow in your career. And we also adopted our 4th child and found out we were expecting number 5. And there was that tension there between, I have a larger family now that's going to take more of my time, and I'm growing in my career. And I wasn't sure how to balance both of those things, right? So mentally, there was a lot of mind games and exhaustion that went on during that period of time, trying to pursue what I thought I wanted also while all these things were happening in my life. That reflection started a lot of reflection in my life, like, what really do I want? And it started a lot of disciplines just to kind of continue to say, like, there were goals in my life and what I wanted. And then there were all the competing factors that got in the way of those goals. And every now and then I just have to sit back and keep reminding myself, like, what's getting me closer to that and what's taking me further away. When 2020 hit and the pandemic was there, I found out that, working in corporate America was good, but there were a lot of false friendships that I had in corporate America. There were a lot of ones that if you do something for me, I'll do something for you, and we'll pat each other's back and learn how to play this game. And then I also found out that it wasn't one of the things that was naturally bringing me joy was to work for someone else. I had internal clients at that time, and a lot of my internal clients were becoming external clients as people started moving around to different jobs. Different companies. And I thought, well, if they can do it, then I can follow them and just go out on my own, right? That journey stepping out into entrepreneurship was a big one. And in that, I have to build in the discipline of reflection, because I kind of know where I want to go in this business, and I kind of know what success is, but success isn't getting the next paycheck bigger than the last. It isn't getting the next promotion. I have to figure that stuff out for myself. So what is success? It was, how do I manage this competing tension between having a relatively large family and having a growing business, and doing it together in a way that isn't one or the other, right? Ironically, I named my business Conjunction Leadership because it is about choosing the and. And that's been my journey, is how do I put the and in between there? So for this is what's getting me further away in my life goals was some of those things that were just, I could tell, like I'm sitting on the couch watching television, but is this really productive? Is this bringing me energy? I could be reading a book, right? And reading a book is going to bring me energy. So why don't I just follow that path? And reading a book will probably expand my horizons. Well, I was doing a lot of those things. And then I just would say, well, I'm active, but I'm not fit, right? And then you came along and the story starts to unfold from there, where just you poked a finger in the wound that was already there and kind of said, hey, what about this? And to me, I was like, yeah, that's the next piece of the puzzle is mental, I feel like I'm good. Spiritual, I feel like I'm good. Social, I feel like I'm growing. Career-wise, I feel like I'm growing. Family. But there was this fitness bubble there that was like, I think I can do more in that bucket. So
yeah, 100%. And, that takes me nicely to my next question, because I remember our conversation, and I remember thinking you do have all your ducks in a row when it comes to, your family, your business, your life, etc. But there was something missing. I knew that you are filling every single bucket outside of your own, and nobody was kind of helping you help with yourself. And, some people call it selfish, but I think in that on that journey, you have to sometimes be selfish and see the bigger picture, because that then allows you to actually be more for others. In your case, obviously your business, your clients, your family, and all the other things. So that leads me to my next question. Do you feel like you have achieved all the goals that you set out for yourself with regards to this program?
That's interesting. I was reflecting on that on the flight over here. I don't think so. I mean, I that's where I'm like, well, what do we go next? This has been the destination for a little bit. I mean, we went on vacation. We went earlier this year down to the Caymans for Christmas. And I'm like, that was kind of a goal, like to walk on the beach without my shirt off and not feel ashamed. I mean, selfish goal. But this has been kind of the destination. And so I thought, well, what's going to happen after this? I don't know. I don't want to compete in bodybuilding competitions or anything like that. But I do think that staying and maintaining is something that I want to do. But I would also like to build more muscle and stay more active. And, I don't know. So... But if I were to step back and say, really, how do I crystallize what I wanted when I started? I just wanted that feeling of being more whole. I definitely feel like I have that. So in one way, yes, I've reached all my goals, but in others, I think it's inspired me to say there's still more.
But that's great. That's the beauty of this journey, I suppose. It's because, whenever I speak to potential clients on those strategy calls, the goal, we talk about clarity of the goals. What is it exactly that you want to achieve? Where you want to see where do you see yourself in 3, 6, 7, 12 months, whatever it may be. And but that's not the end. It's just the sort of immediate goals, so to speak. And then, yes, that once you get to a point where you feel better, you have more confidence, you start achieving, you see what's really possible, that then spurs you on for starting to think, okay, what's next? Where do I want to be, in 20 years' time, potentially? Where do I want to be, if I retire, et cetera, et cetera? So that's great. And that's the next step in this process. We're going to sit down, reassess those goals, see where we want to go from here, and then, hopefully we take those steps. So great. since you are coaching, obviously, and do work with clients similar to us, what would you say to somebody who is in your shoes 8 months ago, potentially thinking of starting this journey?
Yeah. Mental preparation is a big one. To be ready mentally and to say like you're in it, because I don't think you could do this if you're just kind of partially in it. I mean, at least it would feel differently if I kind of only was tentative at what I was doing, and I think it would show up in the results that you guys are monitoring, right? You would see that. But I'd say just I want to go back to your selfish question, because there are a lot of times I think as dads or husbands or even men, we put ourselves in, say, our job is to protect others or to provide for others. And if we do that, then we'll be successful. And we lose ourselves in the journey a little bit. And so I tell my clients all the time, like, self-care isn't really selfish. They tell you on the airplane, if the plane is in turbulence and the oxygen masks come down, you're supposed to put yours on first so that you can assist others. I find in my work, but also in my life, that if I don't put my own oxygen mask on first, that it's harder then to be present with other people and help them or to serve them in the way that I best can serve. And so I would say that that's the piece that you kind of have to get over a little bit in the journey, is that by taking care of yourself, it's not going to be, you're going to be more available and more abundant for other people, but you'll also have more vision and vitality for your own life. And when you do that, I think you're going to be more successful in all of your endeavors, not just in this physical endeavor, right? Mm-hmm. So if I was sitting there 8 months ago, I would check and make sure that, yes, mentally I'm ready to go. And I'm also checking the selfish mindset and putting it on the shelf for a little bit and going, self-care is not selfish. It's about helping other people. And I just have to be more present as I do that. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you nailed it on the head. I love it because it's so true. You kind of, we look at it as selfish, but it's not. It's actually, if you give yourself first, then you'll be able to give others a lot more. Did you have any sort of concerns prior to starting the program? Was there anything that you weren't sure? You mentioned commitment, and I absolutely 100% agree. You have to be fully committed to yourself first. You need to know that this is something that you want to do and understand that it's going to help you get to where you want to get. So that's inevitable. But do you have any concerns before joining the program?
Oh, I think if you remember, I asked you the question, like, how old are you?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And what are your ages of your clients?
Yes.
So my concern, and it was mental again. I grew up kind of in sports, and, knowing how to push your body was important, but it was also grueling. There were times when, coaches or the physical part of training hurt, mm-hmm. right? And then when I joined CrossFit, it also made me have a mentality that, unless you're going to beat your body to pieces, you're not going to get better. I mean, and I kind of had that mentality, like every workout should probably make you sore, and you're probably going to be gassed, right? And so going into this, my question to you was, okay, here's another 30, 40-year-old. I don't know. I didn't know how old you were. I could only see you from the shoulders up. And he's probably going to make me do all kinds of crazy stuff that's going to make me hurt. I'm going to have to push myself even harder and beat my body even further. And I'm not getting any younger, right? Mm-hmm. And so that was my concern, was that defeating my brain and my mindset was, workouts are going to tear you apart. What I learned in the journey actually was workouts were hard, and I could push myself each time to do just a little bit more, but I didn't come away from them nearly like I did from my CrossFit workouts. I wasn't gassed. I wasn't gasping for air. I wasn't laying on the floor. I wasn't physically sore all the time. I mean, there were muscle groups that got a little sore at times because they were underdeveloped. Mm-hmm. And then we would push those a little harder and they would catch up, and others would get a little more sore. But I didn't ache from working out like I had in the past. And it was enough that I could feel like I was doing something, but it got the flywheel started to say, okay, then let's just keep doing it. And so I think that was my biggest concern, was at 50 years old, I don't want to tear my body apart any harder than I have to. If anything, I just want to strengthen it up so that it ages well.
Fair enough. Absolutely. I think it's a very good concern to have. Absolutely, I agree. I suppose the magic is in the dose, right? Because the program has to be very bespoke and individual and tailored to you or the individual that we have in front of us.
Yeah.
It has to, because otherwise it just wouldn't work.
Well, like in my CrossFit days, right? I walked into the gym overweight and undertired and malnourished, and you just hit it square one. I mean, you can scale your workouts as much as you need to, but you're there on the board with everyone else, and you're mentally, I was trying to compete with them from day one. And on this journey, it was, well, really all you wanted me to do for the first 2 weeks was track my food, right? I'm like, well, I'm paying you kind of a lot of money to use this app and just track my food, but okay. But I understand why now, because I didn't know what I was putting in my body and what effect that had. And then once we did that, it was okay, let's add in a couple days of workout. And it's pretty light and just getting you going. And then let's add in a little bit more workout and let's change the diet. And then you just kept upping things enough that it was enough to challenge me, but it was an easier on-ramp to realizing I can get results pretty quick with this versus I'm going to go in and hurt from day one and not want to go back on day two, but I'm going to force myself. And it felt like a grind in that world. This felt like, I don't know, it was a quicker progression because it seemed like the flywheel started spinning faster.
Absolutely. I think, again, really good point, because the biggest challenge that I have speaking to men is a lot of them who, let's say, have some sort of experience with training, weights, whatever it may be, have this mentality that it's going to be 0 to 100 in first week or two. And I'm like, it couldn't be further from the truth. Like, it's impossible for us to do that. I need to assess your lifestyle. I need to assess where you are physically, mentally, emotionally, all of these things before, like you said, we can apply certain things and kind of build the foundation, because that's really what it's all about, building the foundation and then progressing upon that. So yeah, that's really a great point.
Yeah.
So it's been 8 months. When did you start noticing progress, or how soon, or how far into the program?
Yeah, I saw one of the questions was like, what are the milestones? And I was trying to reflect on that. I mean, I really feel like the first milestone in the journey was, I don't know, no more than a month into it, and I had dropped weight. And I mean, I had tried to control what I ate, and mentally I thought, okay, I'm eating enough, right? The first couple of weeks of just tracking and putting it against stuff, I saw way too many carbs and way too few protein, given what you were telling me was appropriate, right? And so just changing that ratio in the first month, I realized my body's going to start shedding some of this weight that was accumulating under my sweatshirts, right? I just wore baggier sweatshirts and got bigger jeans. Still relatively tall, and people no one told me I was looking heavy, but I knew what I felt like. 3 weeks into it, probably then, I think maybe the next milestone, I don't know, I would challenge myself. Like, there were movements in CrossFit that were always difficult for me. Being tall, having long arms, I'm great. I have a pretty good cardio. I could row, I can run, I can do all kinds of gymnastics type of movements. But when it came to just strict pull-ups or handstand push-ups or things like that required a lot of movement with my extended arms, I just was never very good at it. So occasionally in between our workouts, what you had programmed, I'd just go see, can I do this? I think it was probably about a month and a half into it, I started to be able to do strict pull-ups just by myself, just 1, then 2, then 10. I was like, okay, I can actually do this. And then I started doing handstand pull-ups or handstand push-ups. And that was probably, I don't know, maybe 2 months into the journey. And I think I sent Jason a message at the time, and I'm like, I just did like 3 strict non-kipping handstand push-ups. Like, I've never been able to do that. So those moments were the things that were like, I was bumping up against what my previous experience was, and it wasn't programmed into our workouts, but I knew, like, okay, if I can do these things, then I can keep doing more. I forget when it was exactly, but there was a time when I was getting ready for bed and I had taken my shirt off, and I caught my wife like do a double take, and I said, "What was that about?" And she's like, "Well, I mean, your arms are looking really strong," and I'm like, "Thanks." So I mean, those were the moments too.
They big wins. I
Yeah.
mean, they great wins because obviously you live together, you've been together, so that's great.
And then I have a 15-year-old son too, right? And he does naturally lean. He's already ripped. He doesn't work out all that much, but that's just his diet and his metabolism at this point. But one day I took my shirt off and he's like, "Dad, you have abs." And I'm like, "Yeah, for the first time in my life, I can see definition in my abs." And when that happened, I was like, and I think I said something in one of my photos to you guys too. And you're like, "Yeah, sometimes people will say those abs have been overtrained, but you know what you're working on." And I'm like, I really hadn't been doing crunches or a lot of sit-ups or anything that time that was just focusing on it. It was just more the movements that you were programming were causing my abs to have to work. So I would say those are kind of the milestones in the journey. Then pushing through a lot of the mental barriers too is just another big milestone to be able to say, like, this is not only helping me physically, but I'll keep coming back to the mental aspect of it. Yeah. It just added more discipline into my life that I feel like I built a lifestyle less than I'm following a program.
I love that. I love that, especially the part that you mentioned about your son, taking your top off for the first time and him noticing. Do you feel like you have become, obviously as a father, head of the family, etc., you are an authority, but do you feel like you have become more of an authority in that space for your sons?
I hope so. I mean, I guess you could ask them. I mean, that's every dad's hope, is that you're inspiring them. I try to be more purposeful now about having conversations, and we'll talk more about nutrition choices, especially at the dinner table. And my youngest ones will ask me questions like, "Is this on your diet, Dad? Can you eat this?" And I'm like, there is nothing on my plan that I can't eat, right? But I know that if I'm going to have this cookie, then that's a lot. I'm going to have to balance everything else much, much differently, right?
Yeah.
So it's talking about mentally, how do you put a diet together rather than how do you restrict yourself from certain things has been a big one in our family too. So, but I don't know. I hope I'm a good example for them. I hope that they make wise choices, partly because of my example, but I also hope that sometimes they have enough struggle on their own that they have to come to those wise choices on their own. Absolutely.
But I think, I have no doubt that you are a great sort of, father figure and the person that they look up to. So that's amazing.
I will say though, let me put this one in there. My daughter, however, you asked about my sons. I wish I could show you a picture of my daughter. She is ripped. She's 18. And she's been physically active a lot of her life, but not an athlete. When I started this journey, then my wife followed along a little bit. And then my daughter, we all started going back to CrossFit. And then my wife started to come, and then my daughter started to come too. And she stuck with it a little bit longer than we did here at when I joined this program. But my daughter then decided when she went to college, she wasn't going to do CrossFit, but she still goes to the gym a lot. And she's asking me questions on training and what to do. And she's just recently, she competes in some pageant work. And in the fitness portion of the pageant, her photos are pretty amazing. She's got biceps bigger than I do. And when she flexed on stage, there was an audible gasp from the people in the audience, right? So, to me, that's even more important. I want to be a strong role model for my sons, but for my daughter, in today's world, I think it's important for women to show their strengths 100%. And not to always be meek and mild and show subservience or being second, right? And to watch my daughter go through that mental journey of just saying, I'm not only emotionally strong, but I'm also now physically strong, where for me it was maybe the opposite. I might have been physically stronger, but I wanted to be more emotionally stronger. I feel like that journey has definitely been a fun one to watch.
So. Absolutely amazing. You kind of sort of answered that question, because my next one was about your daughters. I sort of separated it, on purpose, because I'm a father. I have a daughter. She's 2 years old, obviously, many years to come. But I hope that, that's kind of her seeing me, that whole, training journey and all of that is going to kind of, model a lot of those things and implement in her life. So that's, a strong girls, basically.
Yeah. I mean, we hope to be strong for our boys and model what good masculinity looks like. And then I hope to be emotionally present for my daughter and model what does good emotional presence look like and balance those things out, right? And I think my boys can learn that to be a strong man, you also need to be emotionally present, and to be a strong woman, you can be physically strong.
Absolutely.
And I think that I can see that working through the different genders in my kids.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Thank you, Jim. One question I have is, do you feel a substantial difference between the gym prior to starting the program and the gym now, in all aspects? And I'm not only talking about physical. I'm actually more sort of interested in that sort of mental and emotional aspect of going through this whole journey and learning so much about yourself. How would you say you're different in obviously in a good way?
Yeah, it's funny because you're asking JIM, this gym, right? Yeah. I the first way when you asked it, I was thinking GYM, that's the gym. And I do think, yes, I do feel differently about the gym. I mean, before there was a sense of intimidation walking into the physical building, right? Like going into a CrossFit class is different because it's a class and you're one of many working out at the same time and nobody's watching you, right? But there is an intimidation factor going into the gym and then lifting with free weights, and you've got bodybuilders and
absolutely,
people on all kinds of potions and drugs and regimens that are lifting out around you, right? And for me, that was I always felt small, even though I was tall. But I grew up as a kid that I don't know, I just never mentally pushed myself against other guys quite the same way. And I as a younger kid, I was more stocky and short until I got my growth spurt, and then I became super tall and skinny. And I was never a guy with muscle. And so I always had in the back of my mind, I'm just kind of a small guy, even though I was relatively tall. But going into the GYM, I always carried that with me as well, right? And in one particular day in the journey in the gym, I'd go in and get my body scans done and stuff like this, whatever, right? And so the trainers knew who I was. They're not training me. They didn't put my schedule together, but they could see what my scan reports were saying. And then my wife went in to get a scan, and when they put her name in the system, it pulled up my name, and they said, "Are you related?" And she said, "Yeah, that's my husband." And the trainer said, "Your husband is ripped." Right? And that to me, like, my wife came home and relayed that. Then when I went back into the gym, now I don't feel small. I don't feel second. I don't feel like I'm. So that describes the JIM and the GYM both in this journey. Like, I think the piece of me that has changed the most is that kind of my physical presence, my confidence. I feel like I relate to guys differently than I did before. It's not just about physically taking up more space, but it's about carrying myself with a greater amount of confidence that exudes more presence and more confidence in that journey. And for me, from a business aspect, that's the piece that I was missing, because that's what my clients need to see. That's what they need to have hope, is that midlife isn't going to get worse. Like, you're not on a downward spiral of slow decline. This is actually the point in your life when you realize what is it that you need to put your energy into, and what are the things that you can just give up. And for me, I feel like I'm in that space where I can model that more effectively now.
Fantastic. I always ask this question when I have these sort of interviews with clients is, what would you say to somebody who is potentially thinking of joining the program, stepping into this journey with us, and maybe they have concerns, they sort of sit on the fence? What would you say to somebody like that?
I suppose it depends on what their concerns are, right? As you would have to get to know them too, but probably the first, I'm thinking in terms of objections, like what are the objections that people have to peel back? The first one probably is the expense, right? That's the first thing they're going to notice. And
great.
Even if there's all these emotional concerns behind it, it's too expensive is probably the first thing that they come up with. But getting down into it, like, where are you actually wasting money versus where are you investing money might be the bigger question for them. It's because sitting on the couch for me was wasting money. It didn't look like it had an expense. I mean, my Netflix subscription or whatever, but it doesn't look like it has an expense. But for me, the opportunity cost of what I could have been doing on the couch and serving a client is huge. And in my corporate world, it didn't really matter because my paycheck was my paycheck was my paycheck, no matter how hard I worked. And somebody else was going to tell me whether or not I got the promotion, no matter how hard I worked. In this journey, if I invest the same amount of time that it takes to watch a 30-minute episode on Netflix about going into and trying to find a new client, that can pay itself greater dividends, right? And so for me, I no longer needed to like decompress from all my stress by sitting on the couch. I could actually be using that time differently. And so I would, my answer to those people would be like, what's your opportunity cost that you're giving up by not doing it? And my advice to them is like, just try it. Go into a 6-month experiment, and in 3 months, you're going to see results that are going to want you to keep coming back, right? So, I mean, I just use my story, right? It was 6 months into the journey, and you came and you said, well, we're going to be talking about the way our pricing structure is here at the end of the year. If you want to do more, you can do more. And I'm like, guess I'm not ready to take the guardrails off yet. I mean, once I started seeing results, and candidly, I don't want to have to think about it. I don't want to have to put my workouts together or monitor it. And, you know, it is kind of nice to know that you guys are in the background, because when I'm putting something into my body or I'm getting ready to eat it, I know that I'm going to get a note from Jason that's like, whoa, way too many cookies. Or I'm going to get something going on back there that, you know, I have to physically think like, okay, it's not just me that I'm disappointing. It's me that's going to show the consequence of it. And if I'm sending you my photos or sending you a video and my body doesn't look good, I know that it's you guys are you'll forgive me, right? I'm paying you, but at the same point, I'm not going to forgive myself. Mm-hmm. And so it's just that extra measure of accountability that I think also would be the thing that I would ask. If somebody has objections or concerns, I'd be like, if you could do this on your own, you already would be.
Yes.
So
yeah. I think it's a great point you touched on, because as much as sometimes I have to say, in rare occasions, it comes down to the cost, the financial commitment to it. However, you said something great. It's the opportunity of that cost. Usually it's not about the finances. It's, for me, and I know it, it's about the commitment to yourself.
Yeah.
That's what people are scared of the most. Because seriously, if somebody tells me that they want to achieve X, Y, and Z, and these are the whys, this is the purpose, kids, family, business, whatever it may be, and then at the end they go back and say, oh, it's to explain, like, it's not.
Yeah.
You just are not committed to yourself. You don't want it, like, strong enough, or...
Yeah.
Do you agree?
I would agree, and I can empathize with that too. I mean, you pulled it out, but I would say one of the big fears that I had was disappointing myself. I have invested into a lot of things that I know I haven't maximized the investment, and I didn't get the results that I wanted, right? Whether it's online courses or whether it was, things that I thought were going to make me a better business person, and I just didn't put the muscle behind it to make it work. And so I also had a fear that if I spend this money, maybe I won't put the work into it, and maybe I won't get the results out of it, and I can say, see, I failed again. And that fear of failure, I think, is a bigger reason that maybe I wouldn't have started. But at the same time, the opposite tension of that was, because I invested into myself, there was no way I was going to let it fail. And I tell my clients the same thing all the time, is I could give you my coaching for free. I can choose to do that as a business owner and as an entrepreneur. And there might be some times when it would be appropriate, but if I gave it to you for free, it wouldn't mean anything, and you wouldn't show up and you wouldn't give it your all. But because I had paid for that, and I had told my family I've taken money out of the budget and put into myself, there was also an extra tension, like, I'm going to make this work no matter what has to happen. And that meant, like, when we went on vacation, normally in my vacation mode, I'd be like, we're going to lay on the beach and we're going to relax. But we hustled to the gym, and my wife, my daughter, and I, all three of us, like 4 out of the 7 days, we were in the gym working out and sending you pictures and eating right. Yeah. And so for me, that is a huge breakthrough, because otherwise it would have been, let's just fall back on our old behaviors. it's still kind of when we're out to eat, right? And it's, for me, one of the things this revealed was my relationship with food. And food was a celebration. And I used to work out so that I could eat a bowl of ice cream, right? I used to work out so that I could eat whatever I wanted. Now it's much different. Now my relationship with food is much more like, well, I could eat a bowl of ice cream, but it's not going to make me feel very good. I know the consequence of what that's going to do towards inflammation or my joints, and I know how I'm going to feel after I eat that. So it's easier for me to say no to those things because food now looks to me more as fuel than it does as something that I'm just eating as because I can.
Yeah.
Right. So
it comes down to responsibility, right? And taking responsibility for your own actions, understanding the consequences of it, and then being able to actually handle it.
Yep.
If you choose to do something that is not necessarily conducive or congruent with the goal, that's absolutely fine. It's your decision. You are an adult, and you make that decision, and you take that responsibility for it, and you are the one to live with. We're not here to judge you. We're here to help you.
Yep.
So I think you absolutely nailed it. So yeah.
There was also a point in the journey too, like since my wife does the shopping mostly, she'd put the items in the cart and, load up everything. Then she would say, some of the food that you're choosing is more expensive, right? Mm-hmm. True. And I'm also eating less food, right? So item for item, it was one of those mental things that we had to get over too. Like our grocery budget is actually going down, but the cost per item sometimes has gone up. But because we're not buying chips and snacks and that many types of things, we might be buying more protein shakes and rice cakes. Those items or whole foods are a little more expensive sometimes, but our overall food budget has gone down. And for me, that was a big one too, to say, see, it isn't about like how much food we're putting in our shopping cart. It's about what are we putting in our body.
Yes, absolutely.
So
absolutely. Great points. I think, look, you are here today. You look fantastic. We have a photo shoot tomorrow. It's been, 8 months journey. And you've lost, by the way, 24 pounds?
Roughly, yeah.
Yeah.
I started the journey just about 210, and I'm right now about 186, 185, depending on the day.
How are you feeling, energy-wise?
Amazing. Yeah.
Great stuff. Jim, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, talking about all the things, so far on this journey, on this program. I look forward to the photo shoot tomorrow. Thank you very much.
Thank you.